This is a very important blind setup for us, and we've enjoyed harvesting some bucks out of this blind, and I love our redneck blind. It's, in my experience, probably the most scent tight, airtight blind made out there. I've watched how they're made. It's an incredible process. It's basically turns into a one-piece blind when it's all said and done. Scent tight, well concealed, warm, very comfortable to sit in, but at the same time, a great blind is only as good as the access to that blind. In the case here, we enter into this blind right here and we're exposed to this whole valley. Literally, there's a 400-yard arc up there that just land goes up about 300 feet in elevation, and everything, it's like an arena looking down at us. So we need to be absolutely hidden when we enter this blind, regardless of how scent tight it is and how much we practice scent control. In the past, we've used Egyptian wheat, and this year we're really stepping up our game to a Egyptian wheat switchgrass combo. The reason we're using that is because I want that 6-7 foot high cave and rock switchgrass to hide this blind and hide our access for a decade or more to come. At the same time, until that fills in this year, we're using Egyptian wheat. So what we've done is we've planted Egyptian wheat in a big half moon around this blind, and we'll show that growing. And then we've planted switchgrass in a giant U, and we've actually put a switchgrass line on this side of the plot, that side, and in front and behind the blind. So we can actually create a little tunnel of very thick switchgrass. We've planted about 10 pounds per acre. We don't want deer walking through here. We don't want deer bedding in here. We want it to be very thick and even difficult for us to walk through. So we're going to effectively hide this blind. We're going to screen it in very well. And, you know, if you live in some of the low deer density states, Iowa, Kansas, to name a couple, and there's very few hunter numbers, deer get used to these blinds pretty easily. In fact, they can go from one property to the next and see a new blind, no big deal. We're in a high pressure state of Wisconsin, and if you're in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, and a lot of these Midwestern states where the hunter numbers are 10 times more than they might be in Kansas or Kentucky even, or Iowa, then those deer get used to these blinds. They get used to these boxy shapes. And the local deer, they'll get used to this blind in this location within a few weeks. You know, after we put it here, they're fine. They feed right out in front of it. It's no problem. But when a new buck comes that we're expecting to come in here from a mile away, 2 miles away, he first enters the land in late October, early November, and we expect to hold him with our cool season annuals and our food sources and our good cool season habitat. He often sees a blind like this in this blocky shape, and he doesn't like it. He leaves, he runs, might not come back. I see guys that put a blind like this right out in the food plot. Again, works great in low hunter density states, and when I have clients there, I create their designs appropriately for that area and for the number of hunters that they have. But then again, in these high hunter density areas, we want to hide this blind. We want that buck that we're trying to invite in here in late October and early November to come in here and say, hey, this is great. There's no intrusions, there's nothing boxy, nothing sticking out to him, and he stays, which is ultimately what we want. We want him to stay, whether he comes in late September, late October, we want him to stay through January, February. We want to keep him safe unless we want to shoot him, and we could advance him to the next age class. And really it goes back to that access on your land, not only to this blind, but how we access the entire property. This blind is only one piece of the equation out here. We have several spots we expect to hunt from, and access is the most important thing. Number one form of scent control, blind location and access and stand location. So think about that. We're going to use the switchgrass and the Egyptian wheat in this. We have a nice flat access behind us. We have been able to get in and out of this blind with 15 deer up here and get in and out safely. We're putting a more permanent solution with the switchgrass this year. And we're kind of excited to have you follow along and see the progression out of this, because we had some really happy memories we created last year out of this blind with the kids and myself, and we're looking forward to many more this season.